Hey guys, it's Steve Baker, Pragmatic Constitutionalist. Shorten that up to TPC and we're good to go. Hey, I'm a little bit out of sorts today. I have been on the road for weeks and weeks, and I am not going home anytime soon. Lots of reasons for that, but I can't wait to share some of the more exciting reasons for that here coming up in a little bit as I proceed with this solo podcast. Scott could not be with me today. Scott is a little bit under the weather, so we wish him the best out there in Tulsa, Oklahoma. In the meantime, I'm sitting here in Tampa, Florida. I was in town for the big festivities last night, otherwise known as the Super Bowl, a.k.a. the Tampa Bay Patriots beating the Kansas City Chiefs, or we shouldn't be calling them Chiefs anymore. As you know, there were plenty of protests here over the name Chiefs. Once again, people with nothing better to do than be offended at something that, well, first of all, I saw them marching and saying that they were, we're not mascots. We're not mascots. Well, guess what? You're not Chiefs either. So I don't know why that term offends you, but that's neither here nor there. I would assume that there might be a chief or two that might take offense, but in most of the history of this particular controversy over the naming of sports teams, the indigenous peoples, otherwise known as Native Americans, otherwise known as Indians, are not really all that offended by having that memory and that honor bestowed upon them. Myself, I am very large quantities of both Seminole and Choctaw Indian, a little bit of Apache thrown in as well. So I have at some point have done a little bit of research to find out if I qualify for any of that good government money or if I'm allowed to actually open a casino. And I don't think that I have enough percentage of either one of them to be accepted into either the Choctaw Nation, Seminole tribe, or I know I don't qualify Apache-wise, and there's another reason why I don't really qualify for that. But I'll get into that some other time. But the bottom line is that myself, I'm not bothered by it, and none of the native population with whom I interact on a regular basis are offended by it either. In fact, the largest majority of the last polling that took place with the changing of the Washington Redskins did not have a problem with the Redskins name at all, and they thought it was a fitting tribute. But that's neither here nor there. Didn't want to get into that. But I did want to talk a little bit about just being in Tampa for the last few days. It's been refreshing, to say the least. As we know, many states, including my own in North Carolina, are excessively hindered from enjoying real life at this time. My Corona Gruppenführer Cooper, Governor Cooper, otherwise known as, in North Carolina, extended his modified stay-at-home order until the end of February, and then we have no idea what he's going to do up there. Although apparently the data is showing some improvement in North Carolina, so we may get some relief here by the end of this month. Or God knows, wouldn't it be great if he lifted it and allowed me to come home, because I'm just not going to go home and live under those restrictions, especially after having been in several free states, or much freer states anyway. Tampa was an absolute joy the last few days. I actually got invited to a Super Bowl related event on the Bay on Thursday night, and which I was able to partake in a big bourbon and cigar soiree right there on the water, and that was wonderful. And it was a crazy dancing outside, no mask affair, and that was again a refreshing relief from some of the places that I have been. And I'm not trying to rub it in, guys. I'm not trying to say this is look what I'm doing and you don't get to do it. But having said that, on Saturday, I also got to go out to another place and saw some live music in a really packed, crowded sports bar, and the band was loud, and they were actually quite good, and I had a great time just sitting in that venue and taking in normal real life again after, now we're coming up on a year of not being able to enjoy that, was an amazing experience. And if you haven't been able to experience that here over the last 10, 11, almost 12 months, I hope it comes your way soon. And then on Super Bowl Sunday, which was yesterday, I had the opportunity to spend time with both my kids. My daughter and my son are both here right now, and so I was able to enjoy the Super Bowl with them, reminiscing on times when we used to go watch the Super Bowl when they were little bitty, and we would find a venue to go watch it and enjoy it with a big crowd of people. And I always thought it was better to do it that way than to be sitting, at home by yourself, unless you're, having your own party, hosting your own party. But we were able to find an incredible venue yesterday where we were able to watch the game and all the pregame festivities. And I don't really have a whole lot to say about the game itself. Congratulations to Tampa Bay. It was fun being here in Tampa Bay when it was all said and done and watching the streets erupt. I think they had to finally clear a major intersection right downtown with some tear gas last night. I haven't followed the story that closely. I don't think that there was any damage being done or any rioting or that sort of thing, but that people just wouldn't leave, and they finally had to get them out of the streets. That's the extent of what I've heard so far, but you may know more. Because I'm disclaiming by saying I don't know. I have no intention of retracting anything that I've said at this point, because it's just not necessary. Still getting a lot of questions from people asking me about my personal circumstances as related to the events in D.C. on January 6th. I have not been contacted by the FBI. I have not been approached by them in any way, shape, or form. They have my phone number. They have my email address. They know how to reach me. I have submitted all of my videos to various media sources. I have a media agent. Television stations have used my videos. They have interviewed me directly. I have I'm not on, even though I'm probably on 1,000 different cell phone videos that are being circulated and reviewed by either the FBI, Homeland Security, Capitol Police, whoever's looking at those things. I'm probably in 1,000 different videos, but the resultant evidence would be that I participated in no destruction. I participated in no breach whatsoever. I participated in no abusive rhetoric or violence, attacking the law enforcement officers whatsoever. I was there recording the event, as I said I was going to do before I left Raleigh and headed up there on the 5th. And that's exactly what I did. I followed the story where it went, and the story took us from the rally site down at the Ellipse in the Washington Monument to the Capitol itself. And when I got to the Capitol and I saw that the rioting was fully engaged by the time we got there, that's where we went and followed the story. And by the way, it's really interesting to follow what's happening and see the varying levels that people are being charged with, that are being arrested for having been there. Obviously, we would all agree anybody that committed violence or destroyed property or kicked in windows or busted doors open or whatever the case may be, we understand that those people need to be charged appropriately and commensurately for whatever crimes they actually committed. By the time we reached the Capitol, there were no longer any barriers. There were already tens of thousands of people that were gathered around around and on the Capitol grounds at that time. But I've also noticed that there have been some arrests of people who did not enter the actual Capitol building, but were on the grounds, and they're being arrested and charged with minor trespassing charges for just having been on the grounds itself, which I just do not see any of that holding up in court. The lawyers are going to get those dismissed because, A, there were no law enforcement on the grounds keeping people off the grounds or refusing them. Now, there may have been earlier, and we've seen videos of law enforcement and some what we call bike rack barricades that were, at some distance from the building itself. I'm not sure how far away from the building those bike rack barricades were, because by the time we got there, they didn't exist anymore. All that existed in that location, or those locations, were tens of thousands of people gathered around the the building. And then the next thing that was obvious to anybody paying attention is that the only law enforcement that were actively trying to prevent access much further were working up at the building and on the building terraces itself, and keeping those who were trying to breach the police lines at that point. And there were, in fact, barricades up there. And that's where we, got a lot of our video, and some of that video has been used by various media sources over the last few weeks. And that's all I did, was just take video. I didn't breach anything. And in fact, as we've documented over and over and over and over again with the video to prove it, is that once the command was given to Capitol Police and Metro Police, who were there reinforcing, to stand down, then there was, in fact, a flow of quite a few hundreds of people into the building itself. And they were unmolested, unchecked. The law enforcement officers, to a man and a woman, were standing aside. And I've talked about this at some length. In fact, I started writing about it again, but I didn't finish this because I got caught up in the Tampa Bay festivities for the last few days. And so I was a little bit distracted. But, this is something that I talked about at great length, great detail, long before Homeland Security, the FBI, Capitol Police, Metro Police, certain members of Congress, long before they finally started admitting that they had the intel that there was going to be some sort of action taking place on the 6th. Long before that, before they started admitting it, I was here on these podcasts, on my blog, on all of my social media pages, telling you with great specificity that this was, in fact, a planned event. There was absolutely no way that you could be there on the 6th, see what I saw, record what I recorded, go back and look at the video to verify what I saw, and then, in fact, to learn, because your mind misses so many things. Your eyes miss so many things in such a hyper kinetic moment in time that we were going through for those couple of hours, that you have to go back and look at the video to verify and to maybe even relearn, and maybe even contradict what you thought you saw the first time. But long before the FBI and such started admitting that they had the intel that this was going to take place, I was telling you, this was planned. This was pre-planned. These people that were there committing the violence, committing the breach itself, they came prepared for this. Now, the one thing that really, 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 really bothers me, and the one thing that they did not come prepared for, and I am tired of this narrative, and I'm still hearing it every day as you are, is that these were insurrectionists. Were there probably some individuals who had insurrection in their mind? I don't doubt that for a second. But they didn't come prepared for insurrection. Even those individuals did not. At present count, there's only been like 2 arrests for firearms amongst the protesters, rioters, and those committing, property damage and violence at the Capitol Hill site. One was arrested on the site. He had a handgun, and I believe they reported that he had 25 rounds of ammunition. They arrested another one who, at his car, which was several blocks away, they found another weapon and several, like 100 rounds of ammunition. I'm not sure what the weapons were, but that's the extent of the firearms that were discovered that day by those who were, in fact, committing violence against law enforcement and against the Capitol building itself. The intention of those going forward is really hard to define under the definition or auspices of insurrection, considering that every single one of those law enforcement officers at the Capitol Hill Police Department, the uniformed officers, the plainclothes officers, private security for the senators, and the higher end muckety mucks such as the Speaker of the House and obviously Vice President Pence and so forth and so on, were all heavily armed, and this crowd was not. And the one thing that absolutely did not have to happen is that the very first breach of barricades that I mentioned earlier, that never were seen by the tens of thousands of people, including myself, that arrived after the violence and the escapades up at the Capitol terraces were after those were going on, those barricades were not there. And the one thing that they knew in advance, as I said before, and that they're admitting in all the major media sources, New York Times, Washington Post, CNN, blah 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 blah, right down the line, is that they knew this was coming. And the fact that they knew this was coming, and the fact that initial breach of those barricades earlier in the day, long before Trump finished his speech, by the way, did not have to happen. If those armed officers had been down there in force and had drawn their weapons and said, "You're not coming past these barricades," that would have been it. Nobody would have walked past those barricades. As it is, we have video of law enforcement officers not only opening gates, but we even have one of Capitol Police officer. She's waving them in. And then they go up to the next level, and now there's another line of barricades, and then this is where that skirmish line or scrum line or the riot line or whatever you want to call it, where the biggest scenes of violence were taking place against the Capitol police officers, and in which many of them were injured, and which there was a good hour or more of hardcore violence by my own timelines and my own video recordings and the metadata that we went through painstakingly to verify timelines with my media agent. And so we know how things unfolded. We know exactly what time things unfolded. We know that the skirmish was going on before Trump ever finished his speech. We know that the people that were there involved, that were wearing riot gear, that were wearing protective vests, that had tactical gear, that had helmets, that had walkie-talkies, that had primitive weapons, whether they were baseball bats or axe handles, or they had their bear spray, whatever that they were going to take over the most powerful nation in the world's Capitol building. This was not an insurrection. Is there anybody? I don't care if you're on the right, if you're on the left, if you're conservative, if you're Republican, if you're Democrat, if you're Libertarian. I don't care what political faction you identify with. Is there anybody who can prove to me that this crowd intended to overthrow the government of the largest, most powerful nation in the world, unarmed? Bring me the proof on that, and I'll back off on my assertion that these charges that are being brought against many of these people are largely over-exaggerated and are going to be mostly dismissed in court. Now, there were a few individuals, as we know. Man, those guys that walked in there with tie straps and claimed on social media that they were going to either kidnap or harm Congressman or Vice President Pence or anything of that sort. Yeah, they're going to face some severe prison penalties, and they should. But I will tell you that the vast majority of those people that just all of a sudden looked up, they weren't even participating in the skirmish line. This is the one thing that has to be. It's part of the narrative that just has to go away. People not even participating in the skirmish line, that were just there watching it with their mouths open and just going, wow, this is really happening. Whether they were supportive of it mentally, verbally. Neither one of those are a crime, by the way. Whether they were just standing in absolute awe that this was happening, awe in a good way, awe in a bad way. I don't care, awe in a, gratified, glad to see the government being attacked way, or like, oh my God, this shouldn't be happening way, because we have all those reactions on video. We have we have the entire gamut of human reactions to what was taking place on the 6th, on video, on audio. We've seen it all. Actually, we've seen it all, the people that pay attention to all sides of the news. Those who only watch the mainstream media have not seen all the reactions, and have not seen people that tried to stop the violence, and people that protected police, and people that stood between windows and doors from violent activists from the left and the right who were trying to breach the building and harm other people. So they haven't seen all of that. But those of us who have seen all of it know that we've seen the entire gamut of human reaction to what was taking place. But what must be understood is that the second that the law enforcement officers were given the order to stand down, and don't make any mistake about this, these are command and control people. They were not standing on that line by their own, choice, and they did not walk away from that line by their own choice. They're following all orders, and that's just irrefutable. And so, at some point, and I forget, I don't have my timelines right in front of me, and I'm tired of looking at them. But at some point, after about 2 p.m. that afternoon, law enforcement was given the order to stand down, and they did, and they walked aside, and doors were opened from the inside. Were there some windows that were busted open? Were there some breaches, actual breaches? Yes, they were. Yes, there were. But those doors were opened from the inside, the ones that I saw, the ones that I have on video. And then people just like, wow. I mean, obviously the insurrectionists, or those who were trying to breach police lines, and those who were battling with law enforcement, they did go into the building first. And then crowds were just standing around going, oh, wow, we can go in? Because if you're in that situation and you see a line of 24, 36 law enforcement fully armed, just standing there, many of them just tapping away and talking away on their cell phones, but texting their wives or whoever they were texting, and they're just standing aside, and you're seeing just lines and lines and lines of people walking inside that building, and there's no sign saying do not enter. There's no barricades at this point. You weren't participating in any insurrection-type activities. You weren't fighting the cops. You weren't being violent. You weren't breaking things. You were just standing there watching it, and all of a sudden, just people are pouring into the building. A lot of people just poured into the building. So my point being is there's a lot of interesting charges taking place right now. As I mentioned at the first part of that, a little bit of a rant that you've heard me give probably before in various other forms and have written about. But that is leading me back to that earlier part of the discussion, which these charges that are being brought against so many people are way overblown. And as I'm reading the accounts of what people did, what they said, we ultimately have to come to a conclusion whether A, speech is a crime, A, thought is a crime, B, what you've posted or ranted about politically is a crime, as it relates to your social media, posts, comments, interactions with other people. And if they are a crime, we're in trouble. And if they're not, then a lot of these people are being way, way, way overcharged. I think there's can't remember his name right now, but the Cowboys for Trump guy that was arrested and then held without bond, with no bail. offered for several days. I think he's since been released, but the first judge that charged him said that, based on the words that he had said, based on the not the actions, because he didn't even go into the Capitol building, but he was being held on a minor misdemeanor trespassing charge for just being on the Capitol grounds inside where the original barriers were, which he probably didn't even see, because as I said before, by the time we got there, they were all gone. So there were no barriers there, and there were no police there keeping people off the grounds. It just didn't exist. So to charge people with anything at that point is absolutely ridiculous and fundamentally unfair. But yes, the guy had some really awful things that he said. I mean, he said some bad things, but there's no video evidence whatsoever that he actually was inside the building. He was on the grounds inside the original barricade line, so they're charging him with this very, very minor misdemeanor trespassing, and then to hold somebody for trespassing without bail because of what he said. We have a problem in this country if that's where we're at this point. And I hope that as this moves forward and these prosecutors come face to face with some very talented lawyers, that they are going to be backed down on some of these assertions about what people did. What we say, what we do are two completely different things. What we think, what we do are different things. Violence is violence, period. Silence is not violence, nor is yet in this country a thought crime. Because I'm going to tell you, standing out there and watching this happen, if they wanted to arrest me for the thoughts that I was having, well, they probably should arrest me for my thoughts if that's a crime. Because as I look up at that dome of that building, and I know the malfeasance that has been going in there for so many decades and, 200 years, I know how many liars are sitting under that dome. I know how many people are actively working inside that building to destroy the foundation of this country and the fundamental founding principles of our Constitution and founding documents and original intent of our founders themselves. As I know how many people are in there actively working against that on a daily basis, which fundamentally then brings us back down to what are they working against? They're working against you and I. They're working against our individual freedoms and liberties. And that is a maddening thing, to stand there and stare at that building, knowing what's going on inside that, studying it as close as I do every day, watching the recent events not just unfold, but just accelerate towards the loss of our individual liberties. As events like the 6th are taken advantage of in that way that we hear all the time, never let a good crisis go to waste. As we see those things accelerating, it's hard not to see that particular event unfold and then go, God, I want to be a part of this. But for some of us, better angels of our nature, our belief in the non-aggression principle, our belief in that it's not yet time to refresh, the tree of liberty. But it's hard when you see all that going on. But the one narrative that, again, absolutely makes me crazy is that what we did not happen that day was there was no coup, there was no insurrection. That would be the first time in history that a major power of any kind, I mean, hell, has there ever been in a small nation a coup that was not armed? I'm sure there probably some example of that, but certainly not against a fully armed police force with thousands of troops just minutes away, that an unarmed group of people were going to commit this act of insurrection against the United States of America. It just didn't happen, and not by any stretch of logic. So anyway, enough of that rant. I need to probably move on with what I'm doing here. As I mentioned before, I'm a little bit out of sorts today. I don't have all my notes and everything together. I don't have Scott here with me to keep me on point. But I do want to cover a couple of other things. Number one, we've been announcing for weeks that I was going to begin the tour up to the Northeast as we did the TPC road trip back here at the end of last year from Thanksgiving through to New Year's. And we've been announcing that we were going to start putting this tour on the books for the Northeast road trip. And then shortly thereafter, we would go out to the West. I hate to tell you, for those of you that were counting on that, or at least I hate to say it because it makes us look like we don't have our what together. But the bottom line is that I have been in the process of starting a book now for several months. Myself and Edmund Wright, who we've had on this broadcast and has written some guest articles for TPC as well. He and I have for about 6 months been planning on writing a book about the COVID scamdemic, and that is now happening in real time. It's a reality. We have begun that. The only reason that we didn't start on it 6 months ago is that, as you know, everything was unfolding. It was we could never seem to find an end of it. That which was supposed to be 15 days to flatten the curve became 2 months of lockdowns and became 3, and then all of a sudden my calendar started getting cleared for the rest of the year. I ended up being in one of those non-essential categories of being unemployed for the almost a year now, and then as a result of that, or should I say, in addition to that, Edmund as well has taken a severe beating in his businesses as well, and that is the perspective that we're going to come after this book, or come after this story, is that we're not writing this as scientific experts. We're not epidemiologists. We're not in the medical profession. We are normal, everyday businessmen who come from a couple of different industries, who also happen to be writers, who also happen to be thinkers, who also happen to have a following for what we've had to say over a number of years. Not a gigantic following, either one of us, but we do have people that pay attention to what we have to say. And as a result of that, we had determined that we wanted to team up and write this book together, and then our original goal was to have at least a draft done by the end of the year, because we just couldn't imagine that this thing was going to carry on past the election. Well, obviously it did, and it still is, and we still don't know the ending of this story, and there's probably not going to be an end to this story anytime in the next 2 to 3 years, but we will update the narrative as it continues to affect us and how it's affecting our lives. And as you know, those of you that have been reading what I've had to say about COVID-19 for the last 10, 11 months, you know that I've done my best to stick to the math, not the science and the data as reported by the governors or by Dr. Fauci, because we know that the science has been malleable at best, and that has been the basis that we have been affected is by the politicization. Didn't say it. I can't get it out right now. Anyway, you know what I'm talking about. The politics of the science has kept me unemployed, and unnecessarily so. And I've written extensively about that. I already have enough words for 2 or 3 books that have been written about this. And so the time that I was going to spend going up on the Northeast tour, we've already set project dates, and we have begun the process now. So that has been pushed a little bit further into the future before I hit the road again, because we now think that we have a point in the ongoing and evolving story of COVID-19 that we can now put together that 85,000 to 100,000 words that we need to get this thing going and to say what we have to say, and to point out the math and the politics of why this did not have to happen, and this did not have to unfold in the way that it did, and what we think that the net result is going to be for us in the short term and the long term, both economically, politically, and otherwise. So we do have a lot to say about it, and we're compiling all of that right now, and we are starting the writing process just this week, as a matter of fact. So we're going to put that 2 months aside that I was going to spend on the road is now going to be spent sequestered away somewhere and working on this book. So I hope that you look forward to that, and we'll be releasing excerpts of that sort of thing and teasing you with that over the course of time. Now, in addition to writing the book, we still are going to continue what we have been, Scott and I, what we have been ramping up here over the last few months. We're going to continue getting out more podcasts. It's becoming easier for me to do this because while I'm mobile, I'm taking everything with me. You can see, for the last 2 or 3, I've been in a different place every single time, and we are able to record these things just basically wherever I'm at in the world. So we're going to be doing a lot more of this. I'm probably going to be doing a lot more of this instead of writing blogs and doing typical social media posts, just simply because it's easier for me to just set this up and rant for a while than to go through my normal writing process. And since that's going to be really focused on the COVID book, then I probably am going to be doing a lot more talking to you than writing about what I see every day. Don't know if that's a good thing for you, or if that's something you're going to be looking forward to, or something that's going to scare some of you off, but that's just kind of the way it's going to unfold over the next couple of months. But having said that, I do want to update you on a little bit on the social media side. I did actually start a new, believe it or not, all my, ranting against Facebook, deserved as much as they deserve it. I've actually started a new Facebook page, and the Facebook page is actually in my name. It's just Steve Baker -TPC. All right. The reason why I've done that is, as you know, don't need to go beat this dead horse anymore. We have been insanely throttled and shadow banned by Facebook on the Pragmatic Constitutionalist page. And so we ran out there and we did all the other things. We've got the MeWe pages, we've got the Gab page, we've got our locals.com. We're on YouTube and Rumble. We've got so many outlets now that I'm having a hard time keeping up with them. But we still have these 35,000 people that ostensibly follow us on the Pragmatic Constitutionalist Facebook page. And we still, after all of these months of being throttled, can't get to everybody and tell them where we are, because we've had our ad account suspended as well. And I don't need to go back and revisit the unfair fact checking and how they will fact check an opinion piece with an opinion piece by one of the mainstream media fact-checking organizations, and there's nothing I can do about it. They've given me the opportunity to appeal, and I just don't want to do it. I don't feel like they deserve 4 hours of my time to sit down and write and go through the appeal process, and so I'm just not going to do it. So what I did just this past couple of days is I did open up another Facebook page. It's just my name, Steve Baker TPC. Find me there, go in there and like that page, follow that page, and then we're going to try and move as many people over from the Pragmatic Constitutionalist page to that page, and so we can just make you aware of where we're going, what we're doing, that sort of thing. So these are the things that I really hope that you'll do. All right, and just the top of the list. All right, so just since we mentioned that one first, go do that. Go like and follow the new Steve Baker TPC page on Facebook, if you're still on Facebook. We're on MeWe. We got a page and a group on MeWe, so go follow those. We are now on Gab.com under the Pragmatic Constitutionalist. All of these should be able to be easily searchable in that manner. We are also, and this is kind of our new hub, as we've talked about before, on locals.com, which is Dave Rubin's crowdfunding / creator site. And we really do... the good book says you have not because you ask not. I'm just telling you right now, what we're doing costs money, and the fact that I've been unemployed for almost a year now means that money is almost gone. So we are definitely looking for underwriting for the book effort. We're shopping for that right now, but there's no guarantees of that. And I will tell you that with absolute certainty, and promise you, cross my heart, hope to die, stick 1,000 needles in my eye, is that if you are one of our supporters on locals.com, you will get to see previews of this book manuscript. So you will get to see what's happening with that before anybody else does. And you get to see that for only $5 a month. So that's it. I mean, $5 a month. Subscribe to us on locals.com. So it's actually thepragmaticconstitutionalist.locals.com. Just go there, subscribe. For as little as $5 a month, you can commit to more. You can even do one-time donations, but for as little as a commitment of $5 a month, you will get exclusive content that will be found nowhere else in the TPC universe, on any of our social media, our podcasts, our YouTube, or anywhere else. So it's going to be exclusive to you there, and that will include excerpts and chapters from the new book as they unfold, as they evolve, because this is an evolving story, as we know. So please do that for us, if you would. It will be a huge benefit to us being able to not only get this project started, maintain the pace of the project without getting distracted by other opportunities or things that we need to chase in order, just to pay the bills. But it is the world we live in right now. I don't have the problem of some of the bigger sites. As you know, we're seeing every single day. Tim Pool just got kicked off of Twitter. We're seeing major conservative and liberty voices that are being demonetized from YouTube, kicked off Facebook, demonetized in every other way, shape, or form that they can be. And in a small way, obviously we have been, but we have a much smaller audience on Facebook, and that's where we began TPC. And so, yeah, we've been basically shut down for all intents and purposes without them actually hitting the off switch. But they've shut us down by just not being able to get to everyone and let them know what we're up to. So we're going to continue plowing forward and making sure that happens. But those of you within the sound of my voice right now, please take a moment. Go to thepragmaticconstitutionalist.locals.com excuse me, and commit just to $5 a month, and that will go a long way to helping us accomplish what we need to accomplish with all the not only the book, but the continued expansion of what we are up to and what we're doing, both overtly and covertly. And then I will get on the road again. I promise you that. My schedule this year is, well, I do have some things, for those of you that know, I am in the music business and I have bands of my own. I have 3 bands, and I do have some things on the calendar that begin in April. I do not intend on now taking this road trip before then, but because of the COVID fear-mongering, people have been afraid to put events on the calendar. So my calendar is very, very weak this year. I do have things on the books all the way into, I have contracts signed all the way into 2022, but it's very, very thin. It's thinner than it's ever been in my career. And that is unfortunate from my own personal income standpoint and in terms of my job, but it's also going to allow me to do the things and commit the time that we have now promised everyone that we will do towards building and growing and maintaining TPC. Because as I mentioned here 2 or 3, 4 months ago, whatever it's been, because of what government has done, making me non-essential, we've decided to make TPC our first priority. And then what has been my career for 40 years is now in the second seat. And so this is now job one for you. So thanks so much. I appreciate it. Nothing else that I really need to cover here right now. I'm going to try and do a lot more of these and get better at it, because I know. I have spent all these years writing and have not spent a lot of time behind this type of microphone. I've spent 4 decades behind the microphone on stage, but this is different. So I'm learning how to do it. I hope that I'm getting better at it. I hope that you're paying attention. I hope that you will tell other people about what we're doing, and that you'll bring them here. And we're going to get more exciting as this goes on. We've got a lot of plans. We have to get to them and get through what limitations that we have currently relating to both financial limitations as well as the circumstances of the day relating to what we can do and how we're able to set up, meet, and circulate among other people, as you know, because of the COVID lockdowns and that sort of thing. But we're out there, and we're aggressively moving forward with your help and with your support, and obviously your attention. So, like everything, comment on everything. Everything that you do opens up the algorithms everywhere. Thanks. And once again, this is Steve Baker, the Pragmatic Constitutionalist, and I look forward to getting in front of you again very, very, very soon. Probably not here in Tampa. I am headed west. Thanks.